Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining this session. Calculations. Does your extension add up? Imagine a scenario where a minor calculation error in a design project leads to significant delays, increased costs, and client dissatisfaction. Understanding and optimizing calculations is crucial to avoid such pitfalls, starting with the manufacturer's extension. In this presentation, we'll delve into the world of CET calculations, exploring best practices and strategies to ensure accuracy, efficiency, and a seamless user experience. I'm Kari Anderson. I'm a pioneer in CET and CETX. I've been attending the conference and using CET since 2006 and began my career as a dealer designer. Most of my time was primarily at Steelcase dealerships and with some Technion dealership experience also. My experience ranged from insights designer to architectural products, and I was an ancillary designer before ancillary was the new primary. For the past 5 years, I've been consulting with the industry with two of my businesses. I'm a recognized service partner within the Configura platform. UX and Kari is my one-on-one consulting for manufacturers navigating e-tools for the industry. The other service I provide is TechBox Collective, a community-based platform that addresses topics, learnings, and events for the e-tools of the industry. So what do I do when I'm away from the desk? I'm a Minneapolis resident and a fan, but not a sports fan. I really love my city though. I enjoy traveling all around the world, and I'm a continuous learner. I'm always attending multiple community educations classes. I'm learning more about tech-based topics and anything that catches my interest. Before diving into the details of calculation, let's briefly recap the CET user journey. There are 4 steps to the user's workflow: design, specify, present, and order. Design is ideating and space planning with the products. Specify is selecting all the products, options, features, specials, COMs, and all of the relevant information. The selections applied from the Quick Properties box update the calculations dialog in a bill of materials format. Present allows the users to create renderings, videos, and 2D plans to share with clients. Order is exporting the information out of CET into the next tool. Rarely is a project ordered directly from CET. The product information typically will be imported into a spec, 2020 worksheet, or directly into a dealer business system. Note, I shared the easy workflow and didn't want to dismiss the reality of changes, revisions, alternates, and the many other hoops the dealer designer deals with in their user workflow. The 7 tips for optimized calculations ensure your extension adds up. The tips include IND tags, the complete column, product descriptions, price lists, manufacturer and catalog codes, custom columns, and the order export. These are not in an order of importance. I consider each of them equally important. A quick note, I'm using the Fika catalog for demonstration. Some features may behave differently if the extension is purely CET developer coded. These tips also do not account for commercial interiors library behaviors. I'll leave that for another session. Here's some information about the relationship between the calculation windows and the user. Calculations are live. Whatever you see in the calculation window is a reflection of everything that is included in the drawing that has data associated with it. If a user does an update in the drawing, it is automatically updating in the calculation window, and vice versa. This means the user also has the ability to do updates in the calculation window that will be reflected and implemented instantly into the drawing. It has its challenges sometimes for users because they want the calculation window to stay static, and when things move around, it gets challenging when they're trying to deal with this very finite information. The calculation window view is much like fingerprints. Everybody's fingerprint is different, and I would also say that the calculation column's visibility selections are very unique to each user. There are over 70 columns that a user can view in their calculation window. Some of those columns are not relevant to the commercial interiors because they are for all of the industry's CET supports. Users have the ability to customize their columns of what they want to see, which is really great. And most final specifications are done in other softwares. I would like to make a point that manufacturers need to ensure that their catalog data is published and updated in the other softwares because a user is going to migrate from CET and finish the specifications in another tool, referencing your catalog data. I'm sharing this information so we can better understand the use of CET. Also, the following review of the calculation window is based upon my user research and feedback and my personal knowledge. Let's begin with the calculation window review. The first topic that we are going to talk about is IND tags. What are IND tags? IND tags are individual description or installation tags. As you can see on the floor plan here, I've made red boxes around some of the IND tags. Those are the tags assigned by a manufacturer. A user will use these to review through a drawing, comparing a bill of materials to the plan, or these IND tags are used for their installation drawings, that an installer can identify a symbol on a 2D plan. A lot of the times, all of the symbols look similar. The IND tags are able for somebody to zoom in quickly and find that specific product. On the floor plan, you can see where the tag is. And in the calculation window, here's the column where the IND tag is located and what that information looks like. What should you consider with IND tags? A couple things to think about. Ensure that the IND tags field is editable. I am showing in the red here what the default tags that were assigned by the manufacturer is, and the user must have the ability to edit these tags. In the calculation window, the user will double-click in the field and overwrite the text. The field color changes to green for edited tags. The updates are made live to the drawing space. By the way, there are still extensions in the marketplace without this feature enabled. The second consideration is the IND tag not to be a part number. A part number really doesn't mean anything to a designer, and it's very hard for them to reference when they're trying to scan a floor plan. The example I'm sharing here is from the FICA catalog. The FICA part number would be too long of a string of text for an IND tag. Imagine other part numbers that are a series of numbers. Again, not useful for the purpose of an IND tag. Users will change the assigned IND tag 60 to 80% of the time. An example of why the IND tag is changed is to match an A&D assigned product tag from a bid, as the example shown here of CH2, or changing the tag to match an internal systematic process. If the manufacturer can assign at least an 80% usable tag, this is still a big time saver for the user. There is no documented best practices what to name an IND tag, but I'm happy to share with you some considerations that I've advised on and that I've learned from end users for the IND tags. Best yet, ask your users. The complete yes/no column. What is the complete yes/no column? This column tells the user, is the specification complete? Yes. Or is there missing specifications? No. The yes/no column will only function if the product options have a default option of undecided or a TBD. A user may use this column to quickly review if they have any incomplete selections. They will scan the column, find a no, and complete the specification. We want this column to be functioning. When a manufacturer includes a finished selection as the default state, There are chances a user may not remember to go back and apply the client's finished selections, resulting in inaccurate specifications. It is best to put the responsibility on the user to make all finish selections. Which is the other consideration, the ability to make option selection updates in the calculation window. Like I said, this is live and the selection made in calculation will update automatically in the drawing space. Another time saver to allow the user to make option selections in multiple places. When Validate Check Drawing is ran, a dialog window will appear and provide errors, warnings, and notes. This example tells us that there are options incomplete because you see above, there are still undecided options in the specifications. Note: some users do not use Validate Check Drawing because of the extensions that do not function correctly, so they just avoid this feature. Please help enable the tools in CET to function correctly and help the users and gain back their trust. The product description is exactly what it says, the description about the product. This description should be the same as what is published in your catalog data in the other industry specification tools. You may be published in Commercial Interior Libraries or 2020 Worksheet, and then this information also does feed some dealer business systems. The recommendations when you're looking at a product description is to include the product name, descriptive words of the entire product, and dimensions. I've given a couple examples here. We have a tower, a very brief description. Like this tower, 4 high, that is it, which is not very useful for the end user. But an example below in green provides the product name, descriptive information, and dimensions. They may be using this information because they're doing a spec check. They'll be looking at a plan view, they're looking at 3D, but they're also reading these descriptions to really understand the product selection, making sure it is correctly represents the product, that they've made the correct specification, and it'll prevent them from referencing other resources to know what is included. Another example is just saying something as simple as a task chair. A better solution is the description in green, including the product name, EFT, descriptive words, task chair, mesh back, mid back, and armless. There currently is no industry standard available for these product descriptions, but if you take these tips and tricks, look back at your data and see how this information is useful for the end user. The price list. What is the price list column in the calculation window? It is the ability for the user to select other published price lists to their specified products. Do you offer any of these solutions? Do you support any previous versions of your pricing or price lists? Do you support contract pricing, potentially GSA, Omnia, healthcare, state, etc.? Do you have multiple currencies? If yes to any of these, consider adding these additional abilities inside your CET extension to support those circumstances. This is managed through your price list column. This functionality also can be put in your navigation bar or your user interface inside of your CET extension. There's multiple places where a user can update this information and have access to it. So if you do have previous pricing because you support, maybe honor previous contract pricing for client contracts, users are going to want to be assigning to those product price lists. Maybe you also have zone pricing. You have 4 different zones across the United States, and the user can select the best pricing that meets the zone that they're specifying, selling from, or shipping to. That's dependent on your policy. This feature can also be used if you support distribution to multiple country currencies. This is common for manufacturers in the US and Canada and their distribution channels. The user will select the currency. The user must also be aware they may need to update the currency setting to reflect the price list selection. Some manufacturers may use catalogs also as a solution versus price lists. So instead of providing these price lists, they may also have catalogs assigned for these specific needs. An example of that is if they have a GSA catalog, and instead of changing a price list, they're actually assigning a GSA catalog that represents that pricing agreement. You have to understand what you're specifically solving for. Consult with your development partner and consult with me to ensure that you are implementing the best feature that will solve for your pricing needs. Manufacturer and catalog codes. What are manufacturer and catalog codes? Manufacturer codes are a 3-letter code. This manufacturer code has been around for many decades. This is the published manufacturer codes that are assigned and are used in not only CET extensions, but Commercial Interiors Library and also within Syncly. You must be using the same manufacturer codes across all platforms. The users expect CET to have or to map to the 3-letter manufacturer codes published. In the center image is the manufacturer codes as you would find them in CET. Note, it was initially a training practice for Catalog Creator that if a development partner did not know the manufacturer's 3-letter code, to use a unique identifier, and it was recommended to use a website URL because that's unique. Nobody has the same URL as another manufacturer. But the challenge that happened with that is that when a designer or a user exported out of CET, imported into spec, the manufacturer code will come across as their URL. The web URL creates problems for the user because when they want to update the products against your catalog data, it cannot identify the manufacturer because the catalog data has a different 3-letter code than the provided URL. Or if they also want to just organize their product by the manufacturer code, the URL code is not helpful. This then requires the user to manually update all of the 3-letter codes or use the find and replace text option. For existing extensions in the marketplace that do not have the correct manufacturer code, your development partner will help you fix this. It is not just going into your catalog creator and updating that URL. We have to consider previously drawn symbols that are assigned to the old manufacturer code. Those old symbols are not going to map to the new code, resulting in white boxes or UFOs in the drawing. So please work with your development partner and ensure that it is going to map over into the next specification tool and that your existing symbols do not disconnected due to some of those big changes that take place. Manufacturer custom columns. What is a custom column? In the calculation window, the user can either create a custom column or a manufacturer provides a custom column. I'm showing you an example of a custom column in the calculation window here. A user can create a custom column inside of their calculation. So why would a user do that? A user custom column can create custom notes in here. They double click in the field, they start typing notes. Maybe they're saying something like, hey, this is from inventory, or this is for ideas only. We need to get final approval. It is like our digital post-it note. Manufacturers can create custom columns. The reasons are to display specific manufacturer information or maybe other reasons. There are challenges, though, when we have these custom columns. Here is an example of my calculation window. I have saved my own setting views. Remember, each user has their unique view they save. The custom columns appear in the calculation window if the user has saved them in their own view settings. In this example, I have my own view settings, but when I view the other columns available to me, I see that I should have these Vika custom columns turned on. These are examples and are for demo purposes only. Users have so many extensions loaded. They don't know to turn on columns for specific manufacturers. So you as a manufacturer, if you create a custom column because it is relevant to ensuring the success of specifying your products, it is important that you train those end users to turn on and use your custom columns. It is also important to include your manufacturer name with a column name. Users may be using multiple manufacturers in the same drawing, and some of the manufacturers may have the same custom columns. It is easier to navigate through the calculation when the user knows the information is relevant to that specific manufacturer. Another example is the chance of duplicate custom column names. How does the user know what column is for what manufacturer? The information in a custom column does not update with other manufacturers' information because it is custom coded. Example is a custom panel types column for one manufacturer will not work for another manufacturer. Users do not understand the back-end mapping of this information, and it is misleading and frustrating when a column is turned on and it is not working for them because it is a specific manufacturer's column. And there's one more example of a challenge which takes place on our next slide, and it is about order export and importing into the next tool. Exporting from CET is the next step to get us closer to an order. The next tool that will be used will typically be Spec, 2020 Worksheet, or a Dealer Business System. As I mentioned earlier, rarely will the project be ordered directly from CET. There are some unique situations where the specs go from CET directly to the manufacturer for order entry. From the calculation window, we begin the order export process. Many choices are available to export, and manufacturers also choose to create their own proprietary export. A question is, if a manufacturer creates a proprietary export, will it work for all manufacturers, symbols, and the drawing? Or does it require the user to use multiple exports per manufacturer, which is not desired? A question for manufacturers, if you're creating a proprietary tool, will it work for all manufacturers' symbols in the drawing or just your own? If you think of a project, it is known that there's going to have multiple manufacturers represented. We all want to be the only manufacturer that is going to be sold by a dealership, but in reality, there is a blend of manufacturers in every project. Test your proprietary export. Test your proprietary export. Does all the information successfully import into the next tool? Ask your users frequently about their experiences, since many times issues are not reported due to their lack of time to be able to report the issues. And your proprietary export, does it keep up with all the updates implemented by CET Core? Common issues with the export import, not specific to proprietary exports, but this is in general. When I'm working on extensions, I check for these items. The option selections do not import into the next tool. Example of option selections are the materials and finishes. A user has spent all of their time to apply the chair fabrics, the paint finishes, and all of those details in CET. And then when they go into their next tool, the information did not transfer. If that information does not go across, that requires the user to re-specify, and that increases their time on the project and also increases the chances of errors by accidentally clicking on a wrong specification. Specials. When a designer creates a special inside of CET, that special information is expected to transfer into the next tool. This is only relevant if you have enabled the Make Special feature on your products. The type of order export could also impact if this special information transfers. COMs. Is your CET COM function enabling the information to be transferred? And honestly, that is an entirely different breakout session topic. Manufacturer codes. I mentioned this up in tip number 5. First, make sure your manufacturer and catalog code transfers. Second is that the 3-letter codes coincide with the catalog data used in the next tool, Spec, 2020 worksheet, or your dealer business system. Prevent the web URL appearing as the manufacturer code. When exporting and importing the CET data, the user really just wants the easy button and expects their information to successfully transfer. There are users out there that map their own CET fields for CET export. That is great for those who like to choose their own adventure, but it is not a reality to expect all users to determine the best path to get their specifications out of CET. It also requires the users to know how to map into the next tool. Custom columns information may not have a field that will be mapped into the next tool, especially dealer business systems. Be aware how this information can be lost in the transfer along the way. How is it going to flow into the next tool and solve for the user's journey? I had a personal experience when I started using CET back in 2006. I was at a Steelcase dealership and was working with a Hedberg dealer business system. In CET, I was seeing all the amazing information. I ensured that my drawing and calculation 100% matched exactly what the customer needed. I then created my export, and it was imported into Hedberg, and my client support person was going through and applying the pricing and checking different things. I got a PDF printout after the client support was done to double check the quote. I was so frustrated. Many items that I had specified in CET didn't make it over, and I didn't understand because I didn't understand the back end of mapping of that information. I was in design. I wasn't in IT. Of course, I immediately called our IT department and got them involved. We started then boiling it down to, hey, these fields, this information is not mapped because we have a new type of SIF functionality versus our previous standard SIF was coming from Worksheet. Now, that was early in the days of CET, and our IT departments, our users, our software companies, all are now more familiar with the process that is going on. We are less likely to run into this, but I do know many frustrated end users out there that are dealing with these issues in CET, not successfully transferring into the following tool. The loss of information increases the team's time, the error rate, increases the chances of our designers working additional hours doing redundant tasks that they don't need to be spending time doing. I hope these 7 tips are helpful for you. I covered a lot of information, and I'd be happy to follow up with you and answer any questions that you have. Please contact me. I created a checklist that you can go through and check these 7 items in your CET extension. I encourage and challenge all of you to open up your CET extension and see how does your extension solve for any of these. Use the QR code to access the checklist. If you're not familiar with navigating through these, please contact me. I'd love to do a free review for you on these 7 items and let you know how your manufacturer's extension adds up in calculations. Thank you.